Welcome to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. I'm your host, Christy Clemens Hoffman. Each week we will discuss tools, tips, and ways to radiate your best life ever, interviewing practitioners, authors, and luminaries to help you on your path. Wellness, joy, peace, abundance. What do you want to radiate? Welcome back to the Radiate Wellness Podcast. Today we are with Timothy and Johanna Dowdle, authors of the I Ching Oracle, a guide through the human maze. Now, these authors are brand new to the scene, but they show the reader how to consult the I Ching Oracle and receive clear answers to important questions. They explain the methods used for consulting the Oracle and how the Oracle responds to the reader's questions. The authors also provide a series of examples from their own consultations to illustrate how the I Ching has guided them through many difficult situations. All of the descriptions of the I Ching hexagrams are based on the authors' lives. Timothy and Johanna Dowdle are an Anglo-Dutch couple who have lived and worked in many different countries and are currently living in the Netherlands. Over the years, the authors have studied and practiced the art of divination, using divination as a tool for making important decisions. A red thread connecting through their lives together has been the I Ching, or Book of Changes. Their aim is to share their knowledge and wisdom of the I Ching and make it accessible to everyone. Thank you so much for joining me, Timothy and Johanna.
Thanks very much for having us.
Thanks me for having us.
Absolutely. If you're watching on YouTube, you'll notice that Timothy and Johanna are in their wine cellar, which is, I'm sure, a very quiet place to be, and enjoying some. We're not enjoying some fine wines now because we're all about business right now and all about the interview. But maybe after the interview, you'll have to break open a bottle of wine.
Exactly. We've got the wine ready for afterwards. Yeah. Well, of course, we're on different times, so here it's obviously well into the evening, but you're still around the middle of the day.
It is around the middle of the day. Yeah, not quite time for a glass of wine, but soon, very soon. And you're right now in the Netherlands?
Yeah.
You're living in the Netherlands? Wonderful. Yes. Yeah, I don't think we've had anybody from the Netherlands yet on the show. This is exciting.
Yes, I was wondering, Mr. Matser, Fred Matser, you heard, he's from the Netherlands.
Oh my gosh. How do I know that name? Fred
Matser, we discovered, I think he also published a book via John Hunt Publishing.
Yes.
And
Fred, you remember Fred?
I do remember Fred. I am so sorry. Yes, I think I pronounced his name a little bit differently, but yes, he's delightful. He wrote a book on blessings, right?
Exactly, yeah.
The blessings.
No, that was Pierre.
Wait a moment. Pierre Prader van. He was the blessings.
Fred Matser. Yes.
And Fred Matser, he wrote the book. I'm trying to find it. He's a philanthropist. And I think something in the vein of ethical business.
Yeah, something along those lines, yeah.
Yes. Oh, this is embarrassing. I'll have to look through my notes. I remember that name. I knew it.
Well, of course, you interview so many people, so yeah.
I do. All right. Well, so the I Ching, this is exciting. I know just the little tiny bit about the I Ching, that it's the Book of Changes. I think there's some sticks or rods involved in this. What can you tell me about the I Ching?
Well, the I Ching is a system to divine the future using hexagrams. A hexagram is actually a diagram of a real life situation that is in a process of change. So if you consult the I Ching, you will receive a hexagram that will describe the situation you're experiencing.
Okay.
But you will also receive another hexagram that will be describing the situation that your current situation will develop into. So that's where the divination comes in, where you have a window to look into the future through looking at hexagrams. That is one basic.
You can vaguely compare a hexagram, say, with a tarot card that describes an archetype, a situation. And with tarot, you select your cards by selecting them from a fan of cards that you put on the table, and you blindly, randomly choose cards. And with the I Ching, you use a method of tossing coins or manipulating indeed the sticks to obtain your hexagram.
Yeah, indeed. And the point of that, the reason that these systems of divination, you have to use a random method to consult the oracle, is because you can't access the future in this using an oracle, using the rational mind. You can't use the rational mind to see the future images that the oracle has available. So as we understand it, the subconscious is kind of a repository of knowledge, but particularly knowledge of the future. So when you consult the oracle, you really access your subconscious. And when you access your subconscious, the oracle facilitates this whole process by giving you knowledge of the future, but kind of chronologically. That's the general principles of it. So that's why you, with the I Ching, to consult the I Ching, you would have to toss coins or manipulate sticks, or to consult the tarot, you would have to blindly pick up a card from here and there, because that's the only way you can access the oracle, access knowledge of the future.
Mm-hmm.
That's the general principle.
Right. And accessing the subconscious in that way, I mean, yes, it's very much like tarot. It's like oracle cards, like the pendulum. It's just a method for accessing the subconscious.
Yeah, exactly. And of course, the beauty of it is that if you consult the I Ching, for example, then you can find yourself on the map. You can find exactly where you are in the reality, because the I Ching will give you a hexagram exactly describing the situation you're in. So you can find yourself on the map. You say, this is where I am. This is the situation I'm in. This is what I'm experiencing. And which is very useful, because a lot of times we can find ourselves in situations that we don't completely understand, or we might have the wrong idea about the kind of situation we're in. So the oracle gives you completely accurate knowledge of the situation you're experiencing. And then it gives you information about what your situation will change into, so you can see further down the line. That's the general idea.
I love that. So it's a hexagram. And so does each side or quadrant of the hexagram, is it a different aspect of the situation, in other words?
Well, we come into the subject of visuals here. So, we don't have diagrams and hexagrams here. The technical description of a hexagram is that it's a figure consisting of 6 horizontal lines. It could be completely solid horizontal lines or completely broken horizontal lines. or a combination of broken lines and horizontal lines. We do have on Amazon, which would help out anybody, a whole excerpt from our technical descriptions where there are also visuals. But to try to make it easier for anybody watching this, the hexagrams, if you consult the book, then you will find an easy way to discover how your hexagram will change into another hexagram, and so on. And the visuals are pretty difficult to talk about.
I can imagine it's kind of conceptual, and you kind of have to visualize it, and it sounds like it can change every time you draw these sticks.
Absolutely. The whole point is that hexagrams change. So you can have a hexagram that consists of 6 solid horizontal lines. But if the top line changes into a broken line, then you have a completely different hexagram. So it's really yin lines and yang lines. So a yang line is a solid line. A yin line is a broken line. And they constantly displace one another and change. Basically, what they do is they mirror the passage of time. So when a yin line changes into a yang line, something is happening in time, in the process of time. So when you see a line in a hexagram changing into another line, then the hexagram is transformed into a different hexagram. And that's really the whole system that this ancient Chinese oracle uses to follow the passage of time from the present into the future. It's kind of along those lines.
Right. So just following the trajectory of the question, perhaps trajectory of the situation to find out
that's
how.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, the trajectory of the situation, which is because situations are obviously in processes of change.
When you consult an oracle, you always get the picture of the moment, and then what the tarot does through a spread, the I Ching gives a hexagram either static or with moving lines, and how that comes out of those methods, that is exactly described in our book, the Eachine Oracle. But when the lines move, the hexagram changes into another hexagram, and from that you can read how the situation changes and what is then the new situation. That is, I think, basically it.
And of course, to make it work in the practical world, what you do is you ask the oracle a question. So you might ask the oracle, should I rent this apartment? Because maybe you're not sure about renting that apartment, or should I buy this house, or any kind of question that's important for you to ask, you can ask the oracle. And if the question is relevant in the reality, if it's a relevant question, then the oracle will answer it. So, I mean, if you take this place where we live here, we found this through consulting the I Ching. So that's how we found this place. We asked the I Ching, should we buy this house? And it gave the green light, you know. But there were, along the way, we were looking for places, and some places we checked out, it said, no, don't do it. And so it's a very practical oracle, but it's also much more profound than simply the mundane reality, because the whole point with A Guide Through the Human Maze, the book we've been writing, is that you use the oracle to find a pathway through life. So the oracle is a guide. it's the guide through the human maze. The oracle guides you through life situations and helps you to find a path through life. And the whole meaning of that is that is to try to create a fulfilling life. Try to uncover your talents, your expertise, whatever you're good at doing, and find fulfillment through following a path that is really the more profound side of using the oracle.
And if I may add something, depending on the hexagram you get and the moving lines you get, the oracle not only gives advice on how to act, or in some situations it's wiser not to act, but also what your attitude should be. So and that way it holds up a mirror and say, at the moment you are like this, you are, say, simply said, impatient, and then it will encourage you to be more patient and to wait for things to shift around you before you can make your move.
Yeah, that is a really good point. I mean, imagine you're in a situation that you find very difficult. You can't find the way forward. You say, what is this situation? How am I going to cope with this? How am I going to find a way through it? Then you consult the oracle. You say, well, how can I get through these problems? And the oracle will, first of all, then once again, it will give you a hexagram showing exactly the situation you're in. So if you were confused, it might help to clear up your mind. You say, this is what it's about. This is the situation I'm in. This is what's happening to me. And then the oracle will give you advice on how to respond or deal with that situation. But it will also give you another hexagram that will show what your situation will develop into, what the solution or the outcome will be of your current situation. Mm. So if you're confused or uncertain or just can't find the way forward, then the guide will help you to find your way through. That is the aspect of the guide. Some people said, well, okay, it's a spiritual guide. It's somehow you're being helped. You can see it in a way, almost like a kind of guardian angel in a way.
Sure. And tapping into that knowledge of like this guide or guardian angel that's got perhaps a view of things that you don't have.
Exactly. Right. And you might think you understand the situation, and then you consult the oracle and discover that you had it completely wrong.
You have situations where you have to have a certain course of action in mind. You think, I'm going to do this, but let's consult the oracle first. And the oracle said, no, don't act now. You are clueless about what's going on. Just wait for the chips to fall in place. And then you know how to act, and you also realize why your proposed course of action was totally wrong. So that is, if you have the PDF, you can even look it up. The example that I gave is hexagram 25. Yeah, you have to be completely open to what comes, and basically what you think you know, put that aside. I think it's called innocence.
Yeah, that's right, innocence. But yeah, it also helps you in dealing with other people, because obviously, here we are in this world, and we have all kinds of experiences with other people, and sometimes it's very useful if you can get advice on how best to act in relation to a particular person, that kind of thing. So that's why we subtitle our book "The Guide Through the Human Maze," because you have to find your way through all kinds of situations filled with all kinds of people, and you have to understand how to relate to them. Are they genuine? Are they really sincere? Well, what is happening? All that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's been coming up for me a lot, that yes, we're spiritual beings having a human experience, but it is a human experience. And it's raw with conflict and confusion and miscommunications and all the different types of ways we can misunderstand each other. And so, getting outside of our own head and getting into the other side of it, the spiritual side of it, the bigger picture. Sounds like this is very, very useful. So the I Ching is an ancient tool, an ancient Chinese tool. What are we talking, like 1,000 years, 2,000 years?
Well, I would say more than 1,000 years BC anyway.
So that is 3,000 years ago that it started.
Yeah, that's true.
1,000 BC.
It's way back.
Wow. And how long have you been working with it? Your material said about 30 years, but...
Yeah, it's around about 30 years. We've been together, 35 years now, but we started using it a couple of years after we met. Some around that time, yeah.
1988.
Around late 80s, yeah.
And so you came to it together.
I came to it earlier. I got it from a friend of mine. She was already doing the oracle, and she demonstrated it to me. She said, "Have you got a question?" Yes. We asked the question, and she showed me the message with the sticks. And the answer, I found the answer remarkable, and that was for me the first time that I had anything to do with divination. I had hardly an idea what it was. I had vaguely heard of it, and I found the result amazing. And I think a few months later, I saw the book that my friend had, and I bought that. And that is how the story began with me. And that was about 4 years before we met.
Yeah, and because we have been consulting the Eachine Oracle for more than 30 years, we've experienced all of the hexagrams. So in our book, we write about the experience of each hexagram as we've experienced it. And also each hexagram has a series of line descriptions. This is where it gets a bit complicated, but
sure.
The lines of a hexagram. So you have a hexagram that is about a particular situation, but you also have descriptions of the lines of the hexagram that are about different situations. So we've not only experienced the hexagrams and written about the hexagrams, but we've also experienced the lines of the hexagrams, at least most of them, and written about them. So you could say that in a way our descriptions are kind of autobiographical, but we haven't strayed away from the essential meaning of the hexagram. So for example, hexagram 5, waiting for nourishment. That is a situation where you're a little bit high and dry, and you're perhaps in a somewhat tricky, precarious situation, but you need to find something that you can connect to that will deliver you from it and give you nourishment, give you material well-being, rewards, and so on.
Did you know that Radiate Wellness is more than just a podcast? That's right. We're also a comprehensive, holistic wellness practice. Find out about our services, practitioners, and upcoming events at radiatewellnesscommunity.com. While you're there, visit our podcast page to read more about our great guests and even donate to the podcast. If you like our podcast, you can help in other ways as well, like subscribe or follow us wherever you're listening right now. Tell a friend, a family member, or a coworker about the great content you find here. And if you wouldn't mind, please give us a thumbs up, a 5-star rating, or a positive review. Sounds like a small thing, but it really helps. You might like to know about our Facebook communities while we're at it. We have a free community, the Radiate Wellness Community, on Facebook for news and great free content. Our subscribers group is Radiate U, as in the letter U, but also, well, you. There you'll find curated replays of past classes, guest interviews, and more. And now, back to our podcast and back to our guest.
So that is one of the hexagrams that I just say as an example that we've experienced, that we've written about.
If I may add something, what we have actually done is we kept a journal of all our consultations, and that enabled us to run our own experiences along with the text in the book, the text in the original translation of the book I Ching, or the Book of Changes. And it was an understanding what aspect of our experience corresponds with the hexagram that we got at that time. And that study, the result of that study, is a book in which we have translated the text of the original book, which is somewhat cryptic, into a description of an experience, and then, of course, in Western terms.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
A very personal book.
Sorry?
So it's a very personal book. It's a very personal story.
That's correct.
It's personal, but the funny thing about that is it's also universal, because these are experiences we all share, we all experience.
Mm-hmm.
So, for example, hexagram 6, conflict. A lot of people have experienced some kind of conflict.
Right.
Another example,
47 exhaustion. 50.
No. Hexagram 6.
Oh, you're looking at, okay.
I'm looking at your chapters, yes.
Yeah, so these are all experiences that that are universal, that we all experience probably at one time or another.
Right.
So what we have done is we have used our own experiences to and then generalize them. To apply to everybody.
Right.
Well, that is the point. The I Ching is really a collection of archetypal situations. So
I was
all of
wondering
these,
about that.
exactly. So the archetypal, all of these situations are archetypal. They're simply within the human world. So human beings of all cultures and all languages, whatever, experience these different situations, these archetypal situations. They're all experiences we all share. So the challenge then is to write a description of a hexagram, which is really about an archetypal situation. Write a description of that situation and ensure that that is valid and applicable for anyone who receives that hexagram. That's really the gist of it.
Right. So the I Ching Oracle, your book, Guide Through the Human Maze, it's broken out into the archetypes, also a bit about how to use the I Ching, how to begin with it. So it seems like a very practical guide. Could you give a practical demonstration of the I Ching Oracle?
Well, I think that it's very easy to consult the oracle. I mean, you can. We have a whole description in our book about how to consult the oracle. It's pretty easy. You can it's either throwing coins or manipulating sticks. So it's for anybody who wants to consult the oracle, they can learn pretty quickly how to do that.
It's a user manual. If you look at pages of how to consult the oracle, it's a user manual. It works like a cookbook. It describes step by step how to prepare the recipe. And so if actually the original book has that as well, that it describes the method and you can immediately start doing it. So what we've done is we've got a part, this practical manual. These are the methods. This is how you conduct the consultation, how the method works, and then how do you interpret the results. And then the hexagram and moving lines text. And where the personal comes in most is when we describe how you interpret the results of your stick or coin method. We illustrate that with examples, and all these examples are from our personal consultations. And that is the most prominent autobiographical element in the book.
That's exactly it. So what we have in the book is we have a whole series of examples from when we consulted the oracle. So anybody who's just exploring this can read all of our examples and then really get a very good grasp of how the oracle works. That's why we've done it.
Right. So your book in itself is its own oracle.
Well, it's really I Ching. It's hexagrams. It's the divinatory system of hexagrams. That is the whole thread running through it. That is how the oracle works. It's actually a perfect mathematical model. It's mathematics. It's lines changing into broken lines and broken lines changing again.
But this, what you probably mean is, you can buy the book and you get yourself three coins, but they have to be all the same, so that they all roll the same, and 50 sticks, and there are on the market. You can even find them on Amazon or in these shops where you buy incense, crystals, whatever. Sometimes they also sell I Ching sticks. But failing that, no problem. Go to the supermarket, buy a pack with minimal 50 barbecue skewers, count of 50, set them aside and use them only for the oracle. And you also you can also do it with that. That is how I started until I found in a bookshop a bunch of, say, original sticks, and they are made of milfoil, dried milfoil stems. That's the original. But barbecue skewers will also do it.
And tossing coins also does it. So. And
tossing coins, that's the easiest method. Nowadays, I believe you have $2 coins. Those are the most recent. Is that correct?
Would you repeat that, please?
The denomination of $2. You used to have $1, and that it is all bills.
You now have.
You use them in these vending machines to get soft drinks, and that is why these are fairly new. And you have 3 of those, and you toss those. That's also good.
That sounds like the Mountain Dew experience.
What is the Mountain Dew experience?
Well, we were in North Carolina and we were drinking a lot of Mountain Dew there. That's what it was.
You know that stuff. It's a little bit a stimulus drink. So when you make a long drive, you run on Mountain Dew.
Oh yes, sugar and caffeine and loads of it.
Yeah.
So the vending machines, you do have to have certain coins to make the vending machines work, of course. So
yes, and that was the $2 coin.
$2 coins. So we can use the I Ching with many things we have available on hand. We don't need any special equipment for it. And then
exactly.
With a book like yours,
and also very importantly, this book of ours, when you have this book, you can consult the oracle completely independently. You don't need help from anybody. It's simply you have the divination at your fingertips. You can use it personally and completely independently. That's it.
Wonderful. Right. And so of all of the books on the I Ching out there, what sets yours apart? What makes yours different?
Oh, that's a great question. That's a great question. Well, one of the things that sets it apart is that we've experienced all of the hexagrams. So we know exactly what each hexagram is about.
It is based on experience.
It's based on personal experience. The other thing about our book is that we discovered a method for consulting the oracle that we have not previously seen anywhere, and that makes it completely different, I think, from any other I Ching interpretation that we've seen, because we've found a method for interpreting multiple moving lines. That's a little bit of a technical area, but it's all described in the book.
If I may come in on that very briefly, when you consult the I Ching, you can get a static hexagram. That is just a hexagram with only on itself. Then you can have a hexagram with one moving line. So that is a line that changes from yin into yang or from yang into yin. And you can also have the hexagram with more than one moving line. And then the problem is, how do I interpret that? Is it so, are all these lines in the same hexagram? Or is it in fact what we call a stack, as a kind of a harmonica, and you have to pull it apart. You start at the bottom, the line changes, then you get another hexagram. Then the next line that moves in that hexagram. And then the next line, if you have 3 moving lines, moves in the following hexagram. We have never seen that. If you don't do it that way, but you assume that all the lines change in the same hexagram, we came, when we first used the old method, to contradictory results. And then we discovered, no, it is, you have to see it as a kind of harmonica, it's compressed. And then you pull it apart, and that is what we have exactly described in our book, how you do that, with examples. And that makes our book stand out, and also for people who have already other I Ching books, and I say, don't think you've seen it all, try this one. Or if you have your I Ching book and at a certain point you have put it on the upper shelf and say, oh, I give up on this thing, I don't understand it. Try again with our book.
Well, it's a big subject, I Ching, isn't it?
But
it's like tarot. There's plenty of books on tarot, plenty of books on I Ching. And a lot of the books are excellent, and everybody can make their contribution.
We have used and seen other books, of course, before we started writing our own, and we thought we had something to add. And in our write-up on Amazon, we therefore write, we see ourselves as putting this whole, start at the beginning, the knowledge around I Ching, you can compare with a tower. And everybody has been laying a brick. And some people have been even laying a whole course of bricks. And what we have done is we've also added a brick. But that doesn't diminish the tower. On the contrary, it just adds a bit to the tower. But that whole tower stands, and everybody can say, no, okay, I start with this book. But you might say, I will buy another book as well, just like you do with tarot. And everybody makes his personal mix and therefore establishes his own relationship with the oracle, be it the tarot or with the I Ching.
Sorry?
No, I was just going to say, I like the aspect of bringing in actual storylines, actual experiences to explain these archetypes.
Yes.
And, I do oracle cards myself. I have tarot, but I don't use them for other people because I feel like you have to know a lot about tarot. But tarot books often miss that. It's like they'll say, well, this is what this interpretation is. This is what this means. But how does that actually apply to someone's life?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
To see that this card actually means and looks like that.
That is the difficulty. We said when we were writing this book, we said, now we've got to really nail this hexagram. We've got to nail it.
Yes.
We've got to really understand the essence of it and relate it to the experience we've had. So if you take, for example, hexagram 23, we've experienced that hexagram. It's a bit of a dark scenario situation. It's not the happiest of situations.
23 collapse.
But it is a situation you're in where basically things are going to fall apart. And it's not your doing, it's the doing of somebody else, but it will happen to you inevitably. And all you can do is sit tight, hang on, at a certain point you will see the exit and you can move out. So that is hexagram 23, and we had to work to nail that hexagram to describe the experience exactly that we had of hexagram 23. And yeah, I was quite happy with the result. I thought it's pretty good. It's a good description of that situation. And we've done the same with all the other hexagrams and the lines as well.
We've described them all in terms of experience, and then experience. And of course, the text is generalized. That it describes the essence of the experience, not only the experience of Tim and Johanna Dowdle, but this is the general experience. This is the archetype, and everyone for him or herself has to translate that to his or her own situation. That is also where the I Ching holds up the mirror. You get the hexagram, you say, yeah, the I Ching says this is the situation that I'm in. How does that exactly apply to my life? So hexagram collapse. What is collapsing in my life? The business that I work for, my job, that sort of thing. And that is the art. Therefore, I find it very difficult to do a consultation for somebody else because I don't know the half of that person's life.
Yeah, that's a good point.
What you see with people who use tarot to give consultations is they have a faculty besides tarot. They lay the cards, and the cards trigger their clairvoyance, their ability. Now I'm telling you something that you know more about than me. What I like about the I Ching Oracle, what we found, I don't rate very much my own psychic abilities, but it is an oracle that anybody can start doing. And the nice side effect is if you start doing divinations and you start establishing that contact with something else besides the practical humdrum of life, the spiritual, and you start to establish that contact, something happens with your intuition. But gradually it grows, it opens up channels.
Right, absolutely. The more you use it, the more that it expands us.
Exactly.
Well, this book is now out. Well, let's see, we're recording on September 29th. It's been out on ebook for a few days. October 1st, which is just, the Friday after that we're recording, it's going to be out more publicly available. So we can get this book through O Books or through the UK publisher. Where else can we get this book?
Sorry?
Where else can
we get the book? Mm-hmm.
If one goes to the John Hunt website,
yes,
the book, then you see there buttons for a button for the ebook and a button for the hard copy. These buttons actually link you through, give you the possibility to Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Hive.com, and Indiebook.com. John Hunt themselves don't have a web shop, but they use other web shops to distribute the book. But one can also simply go to the bookshop and ask them to order it, because John Hunt works with a distributor in the USA, NBN, and the bookshop can order it. And I always say the charm of indiebooks.com is that it is a site that connects independent bookshops, and you can even order the book from indiebooks.com, and then look up the nearest member of indiebooks.com, and then pick it up there and save yourself shipping costs. And the nice thing is, of course, for the bookshop, the bookshop gets the bookshop's margin. That is, of course, that's done for the bookshop and maybe a bit for the site. But of course, what does any customer do when he enters the bookshop? He doesn't pick up his order. He browses around a bit and maybe buys another book as well. Or comes, hey, oh, I've now discovered this bookshop. I come back. That is the idea.
The magic of it.
So
yes.
that you can support the community, but there's nothing wrong if you simply buy it via these websites. Or I bet that Barnes & Noble stocks it. A big Barnes & Noble might simply have it on shelf.
Right. It's right. Absolutely. I love that you're putting out a plug for independent bookshops like Rainy Day Books here in Kansas City. So we can find it online as well as in these independent bookshops.
Oh, you can of course advertise if a certain bookshop in Kansas City
yes
has it. Put it up.
Rainy Day Books.
Rainy Day Books in Kansas City. There's many cities that have their own independent bookshops, and that's our local one. But of course, the O Books that I was talking about is a subsidiary of John Hunt Publishing, which is based in the UK. John Hunt Publishing. I'll put the links to where you can find the books. We can also find you on Facebook through the page I Ching and Divination on Facebook. So Timothy and Johanna Dowdle, I so thank you so much for joining me today. It's been absolutely lovely meeting and talking with you more about the I Ching, which I knew like this much about. It's been a joy.
It's been great being with you, and thank you very much for having us.
Thank you very much as well.
Radiate Wellness is a community of holistic and alternative healers and consultants based in the Kansas City area, dedicated to helping you create spiritual, energetic, and physical well-being. To learn more about our practitioners, services, classes, and events, or to schedule an appointment, visit us at radiatewellnesscommunity.com.